be a little bit passive about those kind of things. I know you had mentioned before is that you always need to have a call to action. I don't know if in marketing, I think you always need to have a call to action, but not necessarily in branding. And sometimes people get those things a little bit confused as far as like if they're doing social posts or kind of creating videos. And, you always want to, the social stuff that we're doing with the podcast, we want to make sure that we're creating value so that people automatically know to kind of go into it. If you constantly are asking them, hey, subscribe, it gets a little bit annoying and it sounds kind of salesy. But if we're trying to provide value, we're hoping people jump in and do those things. But the only way you can track your marketing to get that feedback loop is to have a call to action. That's the only way you can do it.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, and even with your content and stuff, it doesn't have to be overbearing, but you should at least at the end say, hey, don't forget to follow us on our stuff. You got to tell people what to do or else they're not going to do it. So that's why the clarity of the offer, it's got to be clear. What are you telling this person? Then the action part of it is, what do you want them to do, right? You got to tell people what you want them to do. Think about a print advertising. It's like a salesperson on print. So when you're thinking about it, what do you want them to do? And then you got to tell them to do it in the right way. So that's super important. So a clear offer and giving people instructions on what to do. You can't assume that they're going to know what to do. So you have to give them specific instructions. I want them to go to a landing page. Go to this landing page. And then the third part is what are they getting out of it? What is the value? You're asking them to do something. And it's kind of like an exchange of value. If they give you their information, then you're going to give them something back, right? So that thing has to be valuable enough for them to pop their head up, make a phone call, fill out a web form, respond to an SMS, click on an ad. Those are all of the components. Clear, action-oriented, and you got to tell, and then ultimately, what is the value? What is the benefit to the customer at the end of the day? That's what makes up a good call to action.
Yeah. And going back to what Mike was saying, he's right. We're not telling you to, almost oversell your audience.
Yeah.
But, and I find, after a year of consistently posting, even if it's almost like a soft call to action, you have to do it because people need to be told what to do. Even if you're just going to post something to a story pause this video, come back later, something like that. You're not overselling your audience, but it always comes back to offering a benefit. Yeah. Because I think you can't keep asking things of people without giving them anything. And I actually saw a very interesting little podcast segment about this. And it was a girl that's involved in influencer marketing. And somebody asked her, do you think there's such a thing as overselling an audience? And she said, yeah, absolutely. People get annoyed because these influencers almost become walking advertisements because now all they post is ads and their audience gets sick of it. And I'm like, okay, you go back to it. What is your audience benefiting out of this? If they're not feeling the benefit, then you can't even ask anything of them anymore. Yeah. So I think there is a fine line, obviously, overselling and then offering that value.
Yeah, when I go, there's a couple of, HubSpot's actually one of them. I was listening to their podcast, and I've actually unsubscribed from it because I feel like almost every 2 minutes they're saying, hey, don't forget about our platform on HubSpot, and we're doing this. And it's almost just distracting from the conversation they were having. They had some decent value to it, but it was almost like every time it's all right, now I'm getting hooked into this, and it annoyed me more than so I felt like the annoyance outweighed any kind of benefit I was getting from them. So, and I think that's kind of one of the things we could talk about. Again, people do need a direction. If they like what they're hearing, you can kind of say, look, if you like what you're hearing and you want to hear more of it, don't forget we do have a podcast, and this is how you get to it. And I think that might be more of your call to action. It's not as aggressive as a marketing one, but I do think you're right. We probably do need to have that almost in everything that you do so you can guide people to the right place if you want them to.
Yeah, and this might be on a totally different topic, but, I learned this in the car business is that, when someone doesn't buy, it was either the price, the person, or the product. So when you're having trouble, understanding why maybe something isn't working, you got to go back to, is it me? You got to evaluate yourself. Is it the product? Is it the wrong product? Or is it the price? Is it the product? Or is it the people? So to unpack that as a salesperson, they taught us that in the car business. There's only one, listen, if it's the right product and the right price and they're not buying, it's because they don't like you.
It's you.
Yeah. So, it's just to understand that this is where the breakdown is, and this is how you should be evaluating your business. When you learn as much from the people that don't buy from you as the people that do buy for you. You just have to ask the question, and you'll start to understand, is it me, is it the product, or is it the price? You can change the price, you can change you can't change the product, dude. So it's one of those things where that's another good way to evaluate things when maybe you get stuck, because it really does boil down to that price, people, and product.
Yeah, and I mean, we could talk strategy all day long because there's so many different ways to go about this. But I think at the end of the day, like, you should be trying to have good call to actions. But again, you don't want to oversell it and always be evaluating it.
Yeah.